What do you think is inside the brain of a 21-year-old? Netflix shows? Their next Instagram post? No, TikTok dances, right? Wait, what about Bad Bunny's latest album? All of these are probably true for most people, including myself, but my brain is filled with anguish. I am worried about my city running out of clean water, about losing my friends by femicide, about waking up to a new wildfire, about receiving a new school shooting threat, but most importantly, I am worried about not doing enough to solve any of these issues. Sharing how I feel and what I think with other people, it's always an interesting experience. These ideas and preoccupations coexist in my mind. When I talk to people my age or younger, they normally nod their heads in agreement and share their burdens with me. Meanwhile, when I talk to adults, they normally open their eyes in surprise and ask me the golden question: how old are you? My name is Valeria Colunga. I am a 21-year-old activist, social entrepreneur, and consultant from Monterrey, Mexico. And too many people in my life would agree on one thing: I am too stressed for my age. But to be fair, too many young people are stripped away from the opportunity of not worrying. You see, we were born into a world of chaos, a world that has pushed us to grow out of our innocence. Today, I want to share with you how my generation has stepped up to today's biggest challenges, the issues we face, and how together we can protect our shared future. When I was 6 years old, listening to the news anchor talk about dead people found dead on the street was as natural as watching Dora the Explorer. By the time I was 8, I already knew I couldn't go out to the park and play because I could be abducted or find myself in the middle of a gang crossfire. By the time I was 10, I already had a basic understanding of the Mexican drug war. One of my main memories from being in 6th grade is laying on the floor with my classmates as the police persecuted narcos in front of our school's street. If I close my eyes, I can still hear the deafening sound of sirens and gunshots. Growing up didn't make things easier. Just 4 years later, I found myself and my high school friends shaking as the police entered our classroom because they had received a school shooting threat. It was not a drill, and it has never been. So, how wouldn't I grow up with worrisome fears if that is a reality I grew up in? It was a reality that pushed us to mature at a younger age. To this day, I feel that my generation and myself, we were stripped away from the experience of being children. Activism arrived in my life as a coping mechanism and a way to try to gain power over the things that I couldn't control. When I was 16, I heard my mother talk casually about how she was paid less than men for doing the same job. I was furious, but I was also scared because that could be what the future held for me too. So I did what any other 16-year-old would do, and I opened Google. And one click took me from one page to another, and I read every single Wikipedia article on the internet about women's rights. And I learned for the first time ever the actual meaning of feminism. By that point, I knew I had to do something. But could I? I was lucky to find Girl Up, a global movement to advance young women's rights, skills, and opportunities. Girl Up presented me to some of the most inspiring gender equality activists in the world. I say activism was a coping mechanism because working with others on the issues that affected me and that mattered to me redirected my anxious energy into impactful action. So one day, I asked 3 of my friends if they would dare to big dream with me and open the first Girl Up Club in our community. I shared with them all of my crazy ideas, organizing the first regional summit with hundreds of attendees, creating our own t-shirt brand to fundraise money for girls in need, and even renting an entire movie theater so we could play a feminist movie for girls in need. I still remember one of my friend's mother eavesdropping into our conversation. She was worried we would aim too high and be sad if we didn't achieve our dreams. Eso suena difícil, ¿no? That sounds difficult, no? She asked. Yes, see, it's difficult, but it's not impossible, I answered. Just 1 year later, 4 16-year-olds had achieved what many thought it was impossible for us to do by ourselves. We fundraised thousands of dollars through our screenplay, t-shirt brand, and activities. We organized dozens of workshops in our high schools and ignited much-needed conversations in our classrooms. Just a year later, we won an award and even made it to the newspaper front page. We helped create the first Girl Up Coalition in Mexico and guided other girls to open their own clubs in Latin America. In fact, Latin America became one of the most proliferous regions in the world for women to open their own feminist clubs. Not in spite of the fact that it's one of the most violent regions to be a woman in, but because of it. This is one of the most important lessons I have learned as a young activist. No matter how many times we're told something is impossible, we continue moving forward and pushing. Haters call us idealists, but today I ask, what is wrong with a little idealism? Throughout history, young people have shown us that it's worth to live life thinking that we can leave the world a better place than we found it. This took me into my next endeavor as an activist. In 2021, I was appointed by the United Nations Foundation as one of their 8 Next Generation Fellows. We were tasked to work on the 11th commitment of the UN 75 Declaration and find ways in which the multilateral system could hear, listen, and work with young people. We wrote our ideas and recommendations in our Future Agenda report, which contributed to the UN Secretary General's landmark report, Our Common Agenda. It is a great privilege and responsibility to represent the hopes and dreams of young people around the world. When I work with young people, I try to put myself in their shoes and tap into our shared experiences and feelings. If I am to talk to a representative, I might as well be direct, aim high, and tell them the expectations of the people I represent. But this is not an easy task. It does have an impact on my mental health. And it's also very overwhelming trying to find policy-oriented solutions to some of the world's biggest issues. So when I feel that way, I like to take a step back and ask myself simpler questions. Who do I represent? What are their aspirations and dreams? What is the world they want to live in? Gen Z is 32% of the world's population. We are 2.47 billion people in the world. Gen Zers are known for their defiant character. But why? Let's take a step back for Gen Z. Imagine you're born into a place where too many people are comfortable with the idea of the world ending. It's too late, or I'm not gonna be here, that's not my issue, is the mindset of the people around you. The reality is that we live in a world that is not ready to receive the 10.9 billion people yet to be born this century. And my generation is hyper aware of the uncertainty of our future and that of future generations. Young people have tried all possible pathways, yet we continue to be overlooked and tokenized. When we try to talk to our representatives, too often they won't receive our calls or answer our messages. And when we are lucky enough to meet with one of them, they normally use us for social media engagement and don't follow up on the commitments they made with us. This is frustrating because institutions are missing out on the opportunity in front of them. Intergenerational dialogue and input. But there is hope. Not everyone is like this. Working with the United Nations Foundation gave me the opportunity to meet with experts, researchers, high-level officials, and diplomats. And I was surprised to see that they were eager and ready to hear young people's ideas. And while the Next Generation Fellows and I had the opportunity to meet with very impressive and cool people, the best ideas came from young people during our consultative process. They didn't filter their ideas through a lens of what's possible and what isn't. Instead, they invited experts to reassess possibilities. This talks about the importance of bringing young people into decision-making spaces. We are ambitious, driven, and bring creativity to the table. And this ambition is what took us to our future agenda and create a new deal for a new generation. One that puts the right to learn, the future of work, and saving our planet at the center of the agenda. Our recommendations demanded to repair the damage done by the COVID-19 pandemic, to transform the education system, to support industries of the future, to end the planetary emergency, and also to rejuvenate the multilateral system. I had the opportunity to meet with a president and a prime minister to talk about how their governments could implement young people's ideas in their agenda. One of them asked me how more young people could be involved in formal democracy. And I told them that one of the biggest misconceptions I have ever encountered is the idea that young people are not interested in participating in the government. In fact, I think that the issue we face today is that institutions are outdated. And that is why so many young people have to organize outside. If institutions want to remain relevant, they must realize, like the United Nations did, that in order to have a prolonged impact, they need to include young people in the table. During this conversation, I was surprised to hear from the world leaders about their childhood dreams. One of them wanted to be a football player, and the other one dreamed to be a writer. So, how did they become world leaders then? Well, they were pushed to mature at a younger age. Beyond their childhood dreams, what they truly wanted for themselves and their communities was to live in a better place. So they decided to believe in themselves and transform their dreams into reality. And that is one of the biggest lessons I have learned from the generations before us. That small steps towards what you want and a lot of perseverance can lead you into turning what you thought was impossible into a possibility. So, how can we build the shared future we want to live in? First, believe in yourself. Gen Z has been overlooked time and time again for being too young. Age should not be an obstacle. In fact, including diverse ages is an opportunity to hear about different experiences and perspectives. Second, respect others. There is power in our differences, whether that is our background, gender, race, or age. Everyone deserves the opportunity to share what they believe in and the change they want to see, especially when it comes into building the future of next and future generations. And last but not least, be ambitious. When it comes to the future of our children and grandchildren, we should aim high, because modest goals will not be enough to make the change we truly want to see. It's been 5 years since I became an activist, and I have seen a lot of progress, but there is so much change and work left to be done. Maybe we are not living our childhood dreams, but we can still protect that possibility for the upcoming generations. Today, on behalf of young people and future generations, I urge you to listen and work with us. We have stepped up every time to the world's biggest challenges, and we're not backing down. So, let's work together to build a future that we are proud of. Gracias.